The following conversation contains topics of domestic violence and suicide that could potentially trigger emotional distress and discomfort. Please remember, it's okay to take a break, and it's absolutely okay to skip this episode, and we'll see you next week. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Dream Life Loading Podcast, Season 3, Episode 3. I'm your co-host, Skye.
And I'm your co-host, Susan. And today we have our very first guest, Liz. So how are you today, Liz?
I'm good. I had the best day today. It was so nice. I had like a little fall day all by myself. It was fun and I just got back. So
Oh
I'm
my God,
ready to,
amazing.
yeah, to chat.
You are the queen of the solo days. I feel like you're always coming up with such fun things to do on your own, and you do so well on your own. So I feel like we're diving right in. I cannot wait to get into all these different little pockets that make up Liz, but I think we should start. Who are you for people that don't know you? How did like everything, however you want to describe yourself is perfect because we've hyped you up on the
Oh,
podcast
geez.
before. So, however you want to describe yourself, we'll start there.
Okay. So I'm Liz. I am also in my 20s, barely still in my 20s. I'm getting close to 30 these days. And I was listening yesterday to your 20s podcast that you just had, that episode. I love that. And it's funny because things I was thinking of for today, you guys had both touched on. So I love that also. So yeah, but I met Susan when she got with her husband Chris, because I was kind of in the family already with Chris, but then I met Susan and instantly latched onto her. So Chris kind of got pushed aside. I see him sometimes, but it's all about Susan. And then I met you, Skye, at Susan's bachelorette party, and I instantly knew that I would have a good connection with you too. But I am a nurse and like a self-adventurer. Like you said, I feel like I do a lot of things on my own, and I just love that. And that's really, I feel like, what the biggest parts of me are. My
No, that's
friends and spending time by myself and at work. I'm a nurse, so
it's perfect.
yeah.
And I think you are somebody that like you just radiate sunshine and it's just you're so yellow to me. That's like that's your color. It's just like Liz is yellow and like sky blue. When I think of Liz, those are the two colors I think of. And when like the way you describe meeting both of us, that's exactly how I feel. And I know it's how Susan feels too. Like you just have this energy that you just like, you know, right away. Like Susan had told me ahead of time, like, oh, you're really going to like Liz. And I remember being so intimidated coming into that bachelorette party because I didn't know anybody other than Susan going into that. So when Susan said like, oh, you're really going to like Liz, I was like, okay, like that would be great. And then I remember like those moments in your life that you remember so clearly that this was one of them. It was like, okay, yes, Liz is special. So I'm so excited to dive in today with your work as a nurse. And you have such a great grasp on staying positive, self improvement, routines, hobbies, rituals, all the things. So I really want to dive into those parts of you. Tell us about you as a nurse.
Okay, so I've been a nurse for 5 years now. Prior to becoming a nurse, I was an LNA for 5 years, so I've only worked in healthcare really. Um, and I started up here in New England, and I worked there from at weeks from when I started as an LNA until I was there. What year was that? 21, I think 22. I worked there, and then my life took a shift, and I was like, I needed something new and some new challenges, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna leave this job and go do what I was passionate about, which was labor and delivery. So I left weeks. I stayed there per diem and worked labor and delivery for a while. And then I uprooted my life and moved to Florida, did a couple travel assignments. Came back to spend time with family, and I've been here since. It's been a year now. So I've been working per diem at my original hospital, and I'm getting ready to, journey off to my next adventure when it comes to healthcare. So I'm going to work here through November and then start a new travel assignment
Oh my
in
goodness, I
probably
didn't
southern New
realize
Hampshire.
this. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay, cool. This is great.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you always want to be a nurse?
Yeah. That's one thing that I feel like I'm so blessed to have, because I feel like when you are graduating school, there's so like high school, there's so much going on, and you're 17, 18 years old, and people are like, what do you want to do your whole life? Your brain's not even finished developing, and you're just expected to know what you want your whole life to look like. And I honestly feel bad, like, especially for my siblings, because I have five younger siblings, like, to think about how a lot of, at least three of them, they're like, I don't know what I want to do. Like, they had no idea. That's a big decision to make at that age. I've always known, like, as when I was little, my best friend had cancer, and I remember I was like, I want to do what the nurses do for her. Like, I want to be a nurse. And I was in third grade saying I wanted to be a pediatric oncology nurse. Like, and I never, and even though I didn't go into oncology, I never second guessed, like, nursing chose me. I didn't even choose, like, it's like, I just knew. It was like, as much as I know that I'm a girl, I knew I was a nurse. It's,
Wow.
I don't know. Yeah, so I'm lucky for that. But yep, never changed my mind, and I don't see myself in the future leaving nursing.
Wow. That's really special.
What is your favorite part of nursing?
Um, Taking care of people, I feel like that's also the easiest part of nursing. It's what I feel like I'm the best at, is going in and just taking care of people is what's easy. Taking care of people, I feel like that's also the easiest part of nursing. It's what I feel like I'm the best at, is going in and just taking care of people is what's easy about it. It's just second nature to me. And I love going and being able to learn every day. Like, everyone has, because nobody's the same. So, like, even if they come in and they have the same diagnosis as like 100 other people that I've seen, like, there's always something that makes them special or different. And I love seeing their, like, life experiences and different things that have weighed on them through their life that have come into play with their patient, and diving into their charts and, like, investigating what would be best for interventions for them. That's my probably my favorite part. And then also, when you see someone come in and they're not doing well and you don't expect them to make it, and then they walk out of there, and you got to see the transition from, like, death's door to they come to visit you with flowers and to thank you for being a part of their, like, hardest time in their life. And that's so special to have.
Wow. Yeah. So, I mean, on the flip side of that, you kind of alluded to this, but I mean, from two people that do not work in healthcare and do not really have an understanding of this, like, to even do half the things that you're talking about, you're saying that it's second nature. But to me, I'm like, this is very much not second nature. So it's just every time you post something, and I want to get into your TikTok following too, because that's been such a big part of you. But every time you post something, I'm like, you are such an inspiration with the way, and all healthcare workers are, with the way they choose to give so much of themselves to people in need, is just truly so inspiring. So how do you make sure you can show up every day for your patients? Like, what do you do for yourself so that you can show up for them?
Yeah. Um, I spend a lot of time, especially in the mornings, doing stuff for myself to prepare for my days. And I always have to remind myself, because it's easy to be in there and you're busy. Like, every day at work, you're busy. There's something crazy going on, and you're getting pulled in 100 directions, because you're kind of like the central station of patient care. And then the doctor needs you, physical therapy, the dietitians, laundry, like, everyone's pulling you in different directions. So I try to remind myself to not be rushed, like, to go in there, um, and to not grow callous to the things, like, because even though it's something that I see every day, and like I said, it's second nature to me, or it's a normal day, a typical day in my life, it is a far from a typical day for each patient that I see every day. Like, it's not a typical day in their life, and I'm seeing them at their most vulnerable state. And, like, yeah, I can go in and clean them up, like, do care on them, and from their perspective, they're looking at me as a stranger who's seeing them, without clothes on, or when they're hurt, or when they're sick, or when they're at their lowest. So I just try to remind myself, like, that we're all human. And then I spend my mornings filling my cup so that I'm able to go in and share, because you can't pour from an empty cup. And I don't want to go in when they're already struggling and, like, carry this negative energy with me.
Yeah.
What's your favorite form of self-care in the morning?
One favorite. Um,
Top three.
okay, I was
Wait,
like,
and
I
and
spent a
Liz,
lot of time.
before you dive into it, morning for you is a very different time than it is for most of us. So tell us what time morning starts for you, because this is one of the things that amazes me the most about you is how early you get up and how willing you
Morning.
are to get up this early.
Yeah. I love waking up early. And it's funny that so I wake up at 3, which is late compared to when I was in nursing school. When I was in nursing school, it's 1:15 every day. Days off or days on like 1:15 every day. So like now I feel like 3 is like, it's not that bad. Most of the time it's really good because I enjoy doing it.
What
But
time do you go to
when I'm
sleep?
up late, sometimes it's hard. I used I typically would go to sleep around 9 or so, but now with the commute to work, I'm not getting back until around 9, so I'm not getting in bed till like 10.
Oh my
So
God.
my nights have been shorter, and that is one thing that has been hard to adapt to. But I'm now that I'm getting back onto like getting used to the commute, it's better. It was hard because I feel like I would on my days off not wake up at 3 anymore. And was abnormal for me before, like days off or days that I work, I would wake up at the same time every day. Now that I'm back to doing that, it's a smoother morning because a routine for me is crucial. I even if I'm losing sleep at night, if I wake up at the same time every day, I'm more productive than if I was to sleep in. So, yeah, I wake up at 3 just about, I mean, every day.
Amazing. Okay, now go back to Susan's question because I derailed you, but I knew that was important to add because
Okay.
it's insane in a great way, but it's insane.
So my top 3 things.
Yeah,
Just
Yeah.
top three,
yeah.
like self-care.
Hmm.
Okay. Yoga and Pilates. I do that yoga and Pilates every morning. Journaling every morning, and like my skincare like and hygiene routine is a morning non-negotiable. I wake up and I do oil pulling, and I kind of take that time to when I'm oil pulling, I'll journal because I do it for 20 minutes. So I'll sit and I kind of stamp it out so to make sure I have time to get everything in before I go to work. So
What does
I'll
it
do
look
oil
like
pulling and that
for
and journaling.
you? Like 3 a.m. day starts, run us through what is that, 4 hours of your day before you get to work?
I leave here at 5.
Why did I think
So I
you,
get this
oh, because of your commute.
well at
Okay.
5:30, 5:30.
Okay. So run
Mm-hmm.
us through those
Yeah.
2.5 hours.
Okay. So I wake up and I'll start by doing yoga and Pilates. And then, so I do yoga and Pilates both every day. And then every other day, I'll do whatever I'm doing for a fitness challenge. So I'll do like abs or legs and I'll alternate on days. I'll do those things. And then I'll oil pull while I'm journaling. And then I pack my lunch and I get ready for work on the days that I work. And then the days I don't work, I do the same thing, except don't go to work. I think that's all of it.
You are so consistent. I feel like from the day I met you, which was what, Susan, 2 years ago now? Because
Yeah,
you've been married
over two
for
years ago.
just about 2 years. So yeah, over 2 years. But even like so much has changed for all of us, obviously, in the past 2 years. But there is so much since the day I met you to now of what you just said. You are so consistent about the things that you know are going to set you up for success. How do you stay so consistent? Like for the oil pulling, that's a habit I've been trying to get into for months. And it's just all of these little things that clearly you've taken the time to form these habits. How do you do it? Because it is like you talk about it as if it's so like nonchalant and you're doing these things. It's like, yeah, all this and this. But it's like every single one of these things is a choice and you're choosing to do it every single day.
It's so funny because, like you said, where it's nonchalant for me, like sometimes people will ask me, what time did you wake up? And I say it, and they're like, why? Like, why would anyone on earth want to wake up that early? And I was like, oh, I did this, I did that. And they're like, all before you came in? They're like, hardly I can roll out of bed and get ready. But I think that what gets me to be able to do it is knowing how I feel if I don't. Like I'm someone that really craves routine, and at work, I mean, even if I have my like what I would typically do in my day, it's always different and you're always falling off a track. There's no day that's ever the same in the work that I'm doing. So it really starts with the foundation of my morning for me so that if I'm waking up and following my routine every day, I'm already starting like ahead when it comes to my energy. It gives me the energy that I need to get to work and be able to handle all the punches that it throws, and make it helps me to be able to be flexible because I don't feel like I'm starting behind already if I get up and I do these things.
So we've talked about all the inconsistencies in your day and how no day looks the same, right? But you created a chart that you do use every single day. That is one constant in the nursing world of Liz. Can you run us through that chart and what it is, what it means? Because as someone who's not a nurse, it looks really pretty, but I have no idea how you use it.
Yeah. So that's my report sheet. And I use it so I come into work early every day. I try to be there. Most people get there at like 6:45. I try to get there at 6:30. And I pull my patient stickers that has their patient information on it. And each patient has a section on the report. So I fit two to a page. And I go in and I look through the patient info sheet, which they give us at the beginning of the shift, that will say kind of like a snapshot of what your patient looks like. If they're on tele, like heart monitoring, if they need wound photos done, if they're diabetic, that type of stuff, what their diet is. So I'll glance over that and I'll fill out my sheet. I'll go down through and highlight. I have like a color coding system. So that when I'm moving through my day, I can quickly look at my sheet and it will, like, if it's blue, it means they're a DNR. If it's green, it means they're a full code. If I have like highlighted in yellow, they're on tele. If it's pink, then they have blood sugar checks that we have to do before every meal. And then wound photos I'll do in orange so that I can just look at it quick and I know, oh, I have to do wound photos on them today. They're diabetic. I need blood sugars, that type of stuff. I can just quickly glance at it and I know exactly, it helps me to plan my day out and to keep track so that when it comes time to do report, I have everything organized in front of me and I don't have to look back through their chart.
It's brilliant. You are literally Nurse Barbie. And like, even the way, like, every single thing you're talking about since we started is all with the theme of setting yourself up for success, whether it's getting up early or it's creating these charts that streamline your entire day. You are literally like, this is why you need to be our first guest, because everything you're saying, whether it's your routines, like all of these things, is like, yes, this is Dream Life Loading. So it's just like, this is so perfect. Let's talk about your TikTok, because this is something that's really blown up for you in the past, what, like couple months? It's been so fast and it's insane. And I feel like your chart that Susan mentioned, like, you, when you first posted that on TikTok, I had no idea that you created it. So I think it's amazing that you've created these products and now you have this following on TikTok for your nursing. And it's just so freaking cool to see it continue to grow.
So I don't even know. I feel like I don't have much to say on TikTok itself because I posted a video for fun, really. That was originally I was like, oh, this is just for fun. I put it out there and it was well, that's not true. I guess I've made like intermittently I'll put a video on here and there. But then I posted one when I got back to New Hampshire. And that one did okay. And then I stopped posting for a while. And then I posted one at work one day and it just blew up. And I was like, okay, now what? Like, what am I supposed to do now? I don't know. But people would ask, they would kind of give me prompts because they would put in the comments, like, oh, can you show this? Or how do you do this? Or where'd you get your scrubs or whatever? So that I was able to reply to their comments. And then those videos were doing well. And so I thought to myself, because I know that there's so many people out there that are trying to build a following, that they're striving to be influencers. And I kind of felt like it was put in my lap. So I was like, well, I should, if this is coming to me, maybe I should do something with it. So I told myself, I'll just post a video a day and see what happens. And people have been responsive, a lot of the nursing community, which I love because it's nice to get in there and be able to see what everyone else is doing and other people's tips and tricks and all of that.
I think it's great that you, and obviously this is why it's been working for you, because it is so authentic and you're not putting any pressure on it. You're literally like, I'm going to post a video a day and do it because there's people that are asking questions and I have knowledge and I have questions and I can get knowledge, and you're doing it for the sense of community and for like how it's just fully authentically you. And clearly people are gravitating towards that. And I think as somebody, I know Susan and I both are obviously followers of yours, and I'm sure most of your following is nursing students and or nurses that enjoy the content. But then for people that don't, like I really enjoy like your story times, your advice videos, like all of these different things. It's like I have no knowledge on this profession. So I love seeing you dive into it. But it's been so cool to see it grow and obviously continuing to do so.
I'm a big fan of the morning vlogs. I think those are my favorite. Like I love getting to see your morning and then you going into work, and I just I love it. Love seeing that side of your life
Mhm.
because I obviously, as your friend who sees you in real life, I see like the off camera or like the weekend version of you. And it's so nice
Right.
to see like work mode, get to see, Nurse Barbie in action.
Thank you. Yeah. And it's like you said, it's nice because people are gravitating to it. So with that, I feel like because of the people that I'm gaining for a following, it's also building my For You page, like just by the people that are interacting. So now I'm getting like all of this new knowledge coming in, and I'm seeing people in nursing school that are struggling. And then of course there is some negative that's coming with it, but I see so many nurses like talking about different career paths and stuff, which is some stuff that I never even thought of doing with your nursing degree. So it's been really fun for me and I enjoy doing it. Like I'm not posting every day like, oh, because I made this commitment, now I have to. I'm doing it because I actually enjoy making them and seeing the like interaction that I'm running into. So it's been fun.
Is that kind of your mantra with everything? This, like, you're not doing it because you have to, you're doing it because you want to, like getting up early, the journaling, Pilates, like all these things. Is that your mindset with all these things? Is like nothing is a have to, it's a get to.
Yes. And that's like pretty new for me. I feel like after my divorce, it was like a full turnaround because before I was I mean, I'm still structured in a lot of ways, but like I was so structured and it was like, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do that. Like, because I felt like I was obligated to reach a certain goal. And when all of that changed, I don't want to say that I lost everything because that kind of puts like a negative like
Yeah.
connotation on. But when my life went from being a wife and keeping a home and being in school and like everything that I did, I felt like I had a timeline of a goal that I was trying to meet. And then leaving that behind and learning all the lessons that I learned from that era of my life has made me be the person now where I took all of this time to work on myself and do things that fill my cup. And I feel like I can do that in not only on my days off, but like fill my cup in way like at work or at school or anything that I'm doing. With work, especially, everyone, like a lot of people are at work and they're like kind of, uh, I didn't want to work today. Like I can't wait to have a day off. But especially if I have a few days off in a row, like I'm so excited to go back. And I think that the biggest reason for that is because I go in telling myself, like, I'm here because I want to be here. I'm technically per diem, but I work full time and a lot of weeks overtime. And it makes a big difference by being there because I want to be there, not because I have to be there, not because if I don't work that day, I can't pay my bill, or not because it's the only hospital that's available to me, or like I never feel like I'm stuck. And I love that. And it makes me have a good day, or I almost was going to say every day, but it makes me have a good day most days, just knowing that it's what I want to be doing.
That's
You are the perfect.
No, you go, Susan. But all I was going to say is like, that's what the yellow to me, like, that's what screams Liz is exactly what you just said. It's just, but you go, Susan. Yeah.
You're the perfect testament that you can be a free spirit, but you can also be very structured. And I think that everyone thinks you're one or the other, and you are literally the perfect blend of both. Like you are an adventurer and just so willing to go with the flow, but you also create your own routine and stability within that. And that is something that I've always admired in you. But in the last year, like the growth and you just accepting and welcoming all of these new things with such like open arms truly has been honestly a beautiful thing to watch.
I love that. It's kind of, well, I guess it's on topic, but steering a little away. I went out for lunch with a friend a couple weeks ago, and somehow we got on the topic of how do you think someone would describe you if they were asked to describe you? So I described her and she described me. And it's the first time that I had heard that. And it's funny because you basically said the same thing that she had said. She had told me, she's like, it's funny because you are the opposite person in a way at work than you are at home. And I was like, I never thought of that. And she's like, yeah, at work, you're like right on top of policies, procedures. And like, even though I'm not like necessarily uptight, she said, like, you're always chill at work, you're still following like right to a T protocols. And then you always have your day so organized and you're never really straying from that. She goes, but, and when you're outside of work, she's like, you're all over the place. I never know where you're going to be. I never know what you're doing. And you act like life has no rules. And I was like, I never thought of that about myself. But then she said it and I was like, I guess so. Like, I just am so carefree outside of work. At work, I kind of have to be because of liability and like people's lives. Like, that's important. But outside of work, I'm just like, it'll be fine. Everything's fine.
It's
So
such a refreshing mindset. And I know if you don't want to talk about this, we obviously don't have to, but you had mentioned your divorce. And I think obviously you kind of alluded to this giant transition that you went through as an individual person, where it seems like, from obviously an outsider's perspective, but as someone that's known you a little bit with this time, is you really started living for yourself. And if you're comfortable diving into it, I would love to know about that growth, because I knew you and I met you and you were an incredible, inspiring person. But then seeing your growth and transition, it was like, oh my God, Liz just came alive. Like, you truly, like, at least from what I've seen, and obviously it seems like you feel the same way, and clearly Susan does too. So the growth is so inspiring. And I would love to hear about like the ups of that, but also the downs of that, and how you persevered to become like this person that you are so proud to be.
I feel like the the pivotal moment for me was embracing the challenges that came with it, because I could sit and think about it as I lost my husband, like I lost my plans of my future, I lost my house, I lost all my things in my house, I lost I left the job that was what I knew. But then if I thought about it that way, then that's all negative ways to think about it. And then what do I have, you know? So instead, I embraced all of it. So I was like, yeah, I lost my husband, but I gained myself. It was not a healthy relationship. And like, I kept telling myself I was staying because it was comfortable, but it was never comfortable. It was very uncomfortable. It was constant. Like, I knew what to expect every day, but it wasn't a comfortable way to live. So in losing him, I gained me. I left my home, but I like got to a point where it was, I'd rather live in a cardboard box in the middle of nowhere by myself than come back into this house, like the way that I was feeling. So when I left there and I said, I'm leaving this house that's not a home, and I have the whole world that I can live in. Like, I'm leaving this one little like ounce of something that's not, there's not much good that comes with it for whatever I want. So that was one of the other ways that I would kind of flip that around. And then work, like, even though change can be hard, I always look at change as a way to grow. Like, I'm someone that loves change because I feel like I always grow when I change, and I don't want to feel too comfortable. Especially knowing that, especially from the past, I guess, I was the type of person that when I got into something, I would just stay in it because it was a routine. And when all of that changed, it really broadened my thought on change in general. So I just started looking at everything for how I could use it to my advantage and how my life could get better, and pull the positives away from each negative situation there. And I'm so grateful that I had that opportunity. Like, it sounds kind of bad to say, like, I'm so happy for my divorce, but I am. I'm so happy that when I felt like I was drowning every day, like I felt like I was being buried for a long period of time, at the end, to know now that like I was being buried because I was being planted and like I've grown. So I'm thankful for it for sure.
Liz, I'm like literally in chills. You are one of the strongest people I know, and I'm so honored that you wanted to come on and talk to us about this and share this because it's like I don't know. I don't have words. That was like really special. It's yeah.
Write a
I'm just
book.
glad
My
it's fun.
God.
Seriously. Seriously write a book. Oh my God. I don't even know. Like there I have no transition because like that was like showstopper. It's um let's journaling. I feel like journaling was probably something that was really huge for you in this period of change. Last week, we talked, obviously, you mentioned at the beginning of this episode, we talked about change in your 20s. And I realized we even kind of said it at the end of the episode where we were kind of talking about change as being a negative that we were trying to use into a positive. You just mentioned how you view change as a positive. So, was journaling and asked like did that play into this kind of let's go into because you always I remember we used to do and we should go back to it our like journaling Zoom sessions which was so much fun and we would all sit there the three of us and we would journal and we would just kind of talk about what we were journaling about and give each other ideas and you I remember asking you like how do you always come up with something to journal and you were like well I just start writing so let's I want to hear about all of this because like you talk about all these things with such grace, but like what you've been through and the way you've chosen to persevere through it takes a lot of work and you're still doing that work. And I think that's something that's worth talking about and like congratulating.
So I've kind of always journaled. Even when I was a little girl, I would journal, but back then I would write like, oh, today, the date and what happened in my day. And I think that when I was in nursing school, especially, journaling got to a point where it almost felt like a chore. And every day was the same. I was writing like today, I woke up, I studied, I went to school, I went to work, I came home, I cooked. Every day was the same. And I was like, the reason I journaled from day one was to like get things off of my chest and like have work on myself and be able to grow from it. But if I was just reciting what I did every day and it was the same every day, I wasn't doing that anymore. So I stopped for a little while, and then after I was done nursing school and after my wedding, and my marriage was kind of falling apart, I was like, I was alone in it. I felt like, which I know I wasn't, because I have a large support system, but I just never turned to them for a long time. I was just sitting with myself with it.
Mhm.
And I felt like I had no escape. And that's when I turned back to journaling. And it wasn't writing about my day anymore. It was like writing about the trauma of my relationship and like the trauma of my childhood and just like pulling all of these things out from deep that I was not even realizing were there and that were weighing me down so much. And since then, even now that I'm living the life I've wanted, I still am writing about my emotions more than like my day-to-day life. And for a while, I was kind of worried. I was like, well, what happens when I look back and I read my journals when I'm older, and then I'm not going to know what happened. Like, I'm not going to be able to see what I was doing back then. But I feel I recently have read back some, and in the tone of my writing, I can feel what I was going through at that time. And so I just have been still journaling like that. Like I'll sit down and write about my deepest like desires and fears and like feelings and future, like everything, just how I'm feeling on a deeper level. And it seems to work for me.
I You actually, I remember when you first started, because I think it was actually Susan. Again, another moment that I remember so clearly where she was like, I'm so sick of journaling. It feels like a chore because I'm writing what I do every day. And at that point, Susan and I both were still just like, Dear Diary, here's what I did today. And it got, like you said, got to be a chore. And when you kind of filled us in on this and you're like, no, I just write about my emotions. And if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't have it. Like, I'm not feeling anything heavy. Like, I don't have anything to write about. You do. All you have to do is put pen to paper and let your brain go, and you will be amazed at what comes out. Um, you mentioned, Liz, that you were feeling like you had nobody to turn to, even though you knew that you did. You felt like you couldn't, and you kept a lot bottled up. Obviously, now that's not who you are, just with what we've all heard for the past 30 minutes here on the podcast. So, do you feel like journaling gave you the ability to open up in your life to people that you trust?
Yeah, I feel like it helped a lot. In the beginning, like it wasn't I started and I just kept doing it as in like the day I started, I kept doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I had started and then I wasn't even being honest with my journal. Like I was writing. It sounds crazy, but like I'm writing and I'm thinking I write it all out and then at the end I wasn't feeling like I didn't feel any better, you know? And then I would read it back and I would write as if I don't know, like as if everyone that I care about was going to read it and I didn't want to hurt their feelings if they read what I was going through. Like I didn't want them to read it and like think, "Oh my gosh, like you should have told me this." Like this is or for someone to see and be like, "This is not healthy. Like this is not good." And then I was like, if I can't be honest with my journal, then I'm hardly like I'm not really being honest with myself because I'm just like holding it in, blocking it, pulling more in and trying to block it. Then I was finally like being open in my journal and I was like carrying this thing like it was a safe of gold. Like I brought it to work with me anywhere I was, I had my journal. And it's because of the relationship I was in. Like I was nervous that he was going to read it and not it would not have been a good situation because a lot of my emotions then were stemming from problems in my marriage. So I carried it around with me and I would journal. I wasn't able to journal at home unless it was in the morning during my alone time because I always spent my time alone in the morning and I would use that for journaling. But like it was like hidden away and my husband didn't even know that I journaled because he would have had a negative spin on it somehow and it would have become a problem. So I carried it around with me and then yeah, I was being open in my journal and then I finally felt comfortable being open with a couple of friends. And actually Susan was the one person, like the first person that I went to, where I was like, I don't know what to do anymore. Like I'm just stuck between like a rock and a hard place. Like I felt like I had nowhere to go. And I didn't want to talk to my parents about it because like I said, a lot of it was from my marriage. And I'm thinking to myself that I'm going to make this marriage work if it's the last thing I do. Like, you know, I promised, you know, I've made my vows and I'm going to stick to them. And so I didn't want to go to them and then I was worried that they would think ill of my husband if I talked to them about what was going on. And they would have, but so I was thinking like I'll go to someone outside of this. And Susan always has this way about her where she just is like motherly and willing to take in everyone. I knew that I was a safe space for me.
Mm-hmm.
And
And no
it was kind
judgment
of
with Susan with
yeah,
advice. I think
never.
that's like the biggest thing. Yeah.
Yeah, never any judgment with Susan. And it was kind of hard because I had friends that I was friends with for years, but the years don't matter. It's the connection that does. And like when I met her, like we got close quick. And that was the beginning of our friendship, really. And I kind of felt bad. I'm like, hi, I'm Liz. Here's my trauma dump. Like, I don't know what to
So
do.
I met Liz in person for the first time at her wedding. So just to put that in context, like we did not know each other for a very long time at this point. And I remember she had like come to me with this and as her friend, not just her friend, but like a new friend, really. And I was just like, I remember talking to Chris about it and I was like, this isn't sitting well with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I don't feel good about this situation. I feel like I need to talk to her about how I feel. I was like, but I don't want to lose her as a friend. And he said, Susan, it's if she doesn't want to be your friend, if she doesn't want to be your friend after this, but you're doing this purely because you're concerned about her, then the friendship wasn't going to last in the first place. He was like, but I do know Liz, and that's not how she's going to receive this. Like, if this is on your heart, you need to tell her. And so I did that. It was that night. You happened to be working at the hospital close to me. And I was like, hey, I'm going to bring you a coffee. and I just needed to get you outside so I could tell you how I felt about it. And it wasn't necessarily like my feelings or judgment about it, but I was just concerned and I wanted you to know, the truth from your friend's point of view.
How did you receive that conversation, Liz?
So with that, around that time, well, I should say first I knew that if Susan was saying that to me, that it was only coming from a place of love. Like when she was, it's not like she was saying like, trying to jeopardize anything that was going to be good for me. It's not like she was trying to make me think negatively of something that was good. So I knew in my heart that like it was bad. But when she talked to me about it, it was really eye-opening for me that because when you're in it, it's hard to see like with clarity. So I felt like I was kind of in a blurry tunnel almost. And I'm seeing it like as a mess. I was like, maybe it's my emotions. Like maybe it's not really that bad. And then when I talked to her and then she was open with me about how she was feeling about it and that she thought that it wasn't a good situation, I was like, ooh, like, okay, maybe it's really not. And she had given me information of contact information to do counseling. And that was where I really opened up and talked about my marriage. And that was also something that I was doing in private that my husband didn't know about. Because I did try to do marriage counseling and he wasn't up for that. So I was doing counseling on my own in hopes that maybe my goal when I went to counseling was if I can work on myself enough, I can be a better wife and we can make this marriage work. Like maybe it really is me and I'm too hard on him or this or that, always something. If I would have reacted differently, maybe this situation wouldn't have blown up for each of the things that were going on. So then I was talking to the counselor and she said to me at one point, she's like, if all of those accusations he's making were true, would that make it okay that he did X, Y, and Z? And then I was like, well, I guess no. Like she was so matter of fact about it. And I think a lot of it, I mean, she's trained to do it, first of all, but also a lot of it was that there was no emotional attachment like I had. And she wasn't my friend, so she didn't have to like tread on, she wasn't having to be sugarcoat things. She was just blunt with like, this is how it is. Like, if you went to the police right now and talked to them about this, like, like, I don't know what I should say on here and what I should.
You can say whatever you want. Like we can put a trigger warning in and whatever. So whatever you're comfortable saying, you can say.
Okay. So she had said to me, like, if you went to the police about this, like that would be attempted murder, like some of these things that were happening. She's like, and that is never okay. And she convinced me, she's like, what if you make a bank account of your own and just, even if it's just a start, even if you're not ready to like actually leave, even if you don't end up leaving, like do something to know that you're going to be safe and you'll have something if you need to. And I was like, oh no, like he will know if I have any money coming out. But so I just was doing a small amount and all of these little steps that I didn't even really realize at the time that I was making turned into the end of it and also like a whole new me. It was like all of the pieces that he was taking in other ways I was giving back to myself when I was starting to be honest about the way that I was feeling and like talking to people that were being honest with me about how I was feeling, because before I would only confide in him and about it, and that's what he wanted. Like he didn't want me to have an outlet, because I think that, which hopefully not, hopefully this isn't really the case, but I had felt like at the time, it was because he didn't want me to see how bad it really was. And he didn't want me to leave. And that if I wasn't talking to people that would make me see that it wasn't the right spot for me, that I would continue to stay there. So it all started, I feel like, with me being honest with myself and in my journal and then moving from there.
It's amazing how you've taken a situation that would be like that was so horrible. Like there's no other way to say it. It was horrible. And I feel like for so many people, this would be like, I can't go on. Like I'm not going to be able to like come back from this. And even what you just said is everything he took from you, you replaced with something that you created and it was you. And it's just that, I mean, that strength alone is it's just so incredible that you've been able to do that and continue to do that. And I guess, I mean, you've kind of talked about a lot of different aspects with this, but what was, when did you've always had the strength. So I don't want to say when did you get the strength, but when did you realize you had the strength to walk away?
I'm trying to think of like the day. Oh, I don't know how I had to think about that. So, it sounds it sounds like something that in the big picture of everything else over the 9 years that like had happened, like this thing is nothing compared to that. But we're having little arguments about things for that were things that changed the person that I am, if that makes sense. Like the things that he wouldn't like about me were things that made me who I am, and things that I wasn't willing. Like I was at a point finally where like I gave everything. I felt like I felt like I was this like stone doll, and it was each thing that he hated was like a stitch out of me, a stitch out of me, a stitch out of me, a stitch out of me. And like it was like fight after fight after fight. I would go home, my voice would be shaking, like I'd have hands would be tremoring. Like when he would walk in, I could feel it in my chest, like the energy shift in the house. And I felt like I was just like scattered, like cotton and fabric. Like there was nothing of me left. And I would look in the mirror every day. Oh, I might cry about this, but like I would look in the mirror every day and I just hated myself so much. Like, and I got to the point where it's like, I need to leave, or like I'm gonna, kill myself. Like it was bad. It was really bad at that point for me. So I was like, if he can't possibly love me because I'm not me anymore. Like this isn't me. I would never think that. Like these thoughts are crazy. It's something I would never say. Like that's not the type of person I am. And I was just like, every time that I felt like I was putting in the work and trying to, make a step forward with him, it was like 10 steps back. Like nothing was good enough. Nothing would make him happy. And at that time, I was leaving my first job to go and do labor and delivery. And he did not want me working that job. Part of it was because it was a little further from home, but also because the schedule wasn't ideal for our marriage. I was going to have to work 3 nights a week, but it was my dream job. Like I've always wanted to do labor and delivery, and he didn't want me to take it. And I felt like I had given so much. Like I had so many friends that I had lost because I chose him over those friendships, and so many opportunities that I lost because I chose him over those opportunities. And I was like, this is like, I can't. And it was at the point where I felt like the end was coming, kind of. And I was like, I can give up this opportunity to work on this marriage that has the ending is inevitable at this point. I feel like even though I wasn't thinking that in my head, I must have felt it because I made the decision. I went to labor and delivery, and it was only worse from there. Like it was every day I would go home because I was working nights. All day he would text me arguing with me, but then wouldn't talk to me at all at night. And then I would come home from work in the daytime and he'd be at work, but he would not come home from work. Like at his normal time, he would stay longer so that I wouldn't have to see him before work most days. So that we were going days and days without seeing each other, and be like, see, I told you like this wasn't gonna be good for us. We can't see each other. And I was, trying to figure out like, can we go to marriage counseling? Like, what if we spend 1 day a week doing something, just the two of us? Is there a schedule that would work better for our marriage? Like if I can work all in a row or every other, so that we only are going a day, like one night at a time, not seeing each other, like would that work for you? But nothing was working for him. And then, sorry, I got off topic. And then, so I got home one day and I had a jar of beads for all the babies that I had delivered, and it was empty. All of my beads were gone. And like, yeah, they were beads to like most people, but like to me, it was something that mattered to me. And he did it it was why he did it that mattered the most. I was like, what did he gain from throwing away my beads? Like that was out of pure hatred. It's not because like it was to be malicious. It's not because he benefited
this
from
was a
it.
jar that was like a jar where you would put like a pink bead if you delivered a
Mhm.
baby girl and a blue bead where you delivered a boy. And so this was like pride for you. This was like your
Yeah,
career. You can physically see the work you're doing, the impact you're making. Like, okay, yes.
right. Yeah. And it was gone. And then when I was like, I was so mad about the fact of the beads were gone.
Mhm.
But then when I was thinking about it, like, what kind of person that loves you would do something that it's that doesn't affect it, like it's nothing that's gonna, how should I even say it? It's not something that was gonna tangible, like a tangible thing for them. It's not anything that was gonna help him in any way. It's nothing that was affecting him. It was only to be mean. And it was only to show like F you, basically, like
Yeah.
F you and F your career and
Control.
to be
Yeah.
mean. Yeah. And I that same day, I paced so much, I was like wearing holes in the floor. I was like, what do I do? Like, and I grabbed my scrubs. That's all I grabbed. I grabbed all my scrubs and I left. And I was like, I don't know. Like, I was hoping that he would give me an apology and some sort of hope that it was going to be better. Um, but I knew that if he didn't, like, at least have my scrubs so I can work and then I can make money and then I'll figure out where to go from here. And I was staying in my car because I, or like, oh, a friend's house.
Mhm.
But I was working nights, so I was like, oh, I'll just stay up all day and I'll like drive around and do stuff for a little while. And then I would like go and spend a night at a friend's house here and there. And I was just working and I went back to the house at one point when he wasn't home and grabbed like one basket of clothes. And that was it until months later when my divorce was when it was finalized and I was able to go get some of my other stuff like for clothes. That's what I did. I like lived out of a basket in my car and stayed with friends. Susan was like always offering everything when she found out, she's like, no, it's like, you are not going to like the laundromat when you can stay here. I'm working from home, like we can spend a little time together, you can nap, you can, like, my home is yours, like if you, whatever you need, let me know. And then my uncle had found out that I was staying like all, hopping around and staying in my car. And he was like, absolutely not. So he took me in and I did that for a little while. And then I never went back.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much to say. And I mean, we've already expressed like the strength you have and how much we admire you. And I mean, the courage to walk away, like you have so much courage and you have so much strength. And just to hear from the beginning of this podcast where you said that it sounded weird to say, but you were grateful for your divorce. And now to hear you go into what that actually looked like and to still hear you say that you can still be grateful for these moments that were like your lowest moments, to know you now where you've come full circle and then some to a point where you're grateful for those lowest moments is just, I don't even know if there's a word for it, how like it's just truly beautiful that you've been able to do this. And I mean, there's so many different ways we can go with it, and I don't, I think you need to come back on. I think that would be another incredible thing, would be to have you back on. But for women listening, if they are in a relationship like the one you were in, what would you say to them?
Well, I'm trying to think of how I can narrow it down to one thing, but there's no easy answer really. But I do know that if you're, this is when it gets, you're really at the end, like this is bad. Like if your body is telling you it's not right, it's not right. And you should trust your body. And before that, like before you even get to that point, if there's more bad than good, and what someone, like if someone's non-negotiable is something that makes up you as a person, then it needs to be a non-negotiable for you, really. Like I'm trying to figure out how to put that into words. Susan, you're good at that.
I think
Like
that made perfect sense.
Yeah,
it
I
did.
mean,
I feel like I kind
yeah.
of got lost in translation when I was saying it, but
No, it
yeah,
makes sense. You had been saying how he kept pulling threads and you felt like you were like fabric and cotton, and then obviously you've pieced yourself back together to like a whole new version of yourself that you didn't even know could exist before. But I think what you're saying is like, if someone hates a strong word, but I think we can use it here. If someone is hating on the pieces of you that make you you to a point where you no longer feel like yourself, I think that's what you're saying.
Yes, yeah. Yeah. And even before you get to that point, like if someone you love is not liking something about you, and it's not like something that's easily change, like something that you can easily change. If it's not like, oh, you leave your socks out all the time, will you mind picking them up? Or like sometimes you seem like you're irritable with me about this, like, can we talk about your feelings? Like, that's a totally healthy way of dealing with it. But if they're saying, you laugh too loud, like you're not fun, oh, now you're having too much fun, like anything that you're doing, or if you're trying to make changes for someone else and they're not willing to give or grow with you, then it's not worth losing yourself over. I mean, nothing's worth losing, like nothing at all is worth losing yourself over, but it's not worth holding on to if you are having to lose pieces of yourself for it.
Yeah.
Because anyone that loves you would want you to be you and would want to grow with you. And if they are always feeling like you're the one that needs to improve, then it's not ever worth staying. So
Yeah, it's perfect. Let's end on a happy note.
yeah.
Although we did come back full circle, and I mean, I think all of this is so important, obviously, because it's what makes you you. But to wrap this up for today, this is Dream Life Loading. You mentioned in the middle of the episode that you were like, I'm living my dream life right now. Like, I'm living the life I want to be living. Obviously, we talked throughout the whole episode about kind of how you got there, but how are you, like, basically describe how your dream life is loading. Like, you've talked about your lows, you've talked about your highs. How is your life? You told us that it was your dream right now. How are you continuing to work towards goals to be in that loading zone? Like, you're continuing to improve and do things to continue to set yourself up for success. Kind of what you had said, you're about to enter a new job. And so I think all this is going to tie in.
Yeah. So I strive to only take opportunities that align with my vision of myself. Every day, I'm trying to make decisions that I know are contributing to the life that I want, as well as living the life that I want now. So right now, like I said, I'm working per diem, which gives me a lot of flexibility, because even though I'm working full-time hours, it's really building a schedule that works for me so that I'm not losing outside of work opportunities. I'm being able to travel and spend time with my family and spend time with my friends. And working 3/12s is also like my dream schedule, because I'm someone that needs a lot of alone time. I thrive being alone a lot. So doing that, typically would have 4 days off. So I have a day to myself, a full day to myself during the week when the rest of the world is working, or a majority of the world is working. And I have that day to regroup with myself and do the things that like fill my cup, so that the other 3 days that I have off, I can spend with my friends or my boyfriend, or, chores and all of that stuff too. So that in work life is how it is. And then we're trying to find a house to buy at some point. But in the meantime, we're full-time RVers, which I love, because I feel like my home can go anywhere. And it makes me feel like I have the ability to travel if I want to. And also it has been helping me to simplify my life. So I'm not going out and making purchases all the time, or putting my time and energy and money in things that really don't matter to me, but they just seem nice to have at the time. It's making me be more mindful about all of the things that I have. So that's one other way that I feel like I'm always contributing to my dream life. Oh wait, I almost missed the biggest and most important thing.
Go tell us.
So I'm starting school December 9th for my esthetician. I went,
Amazing.
yeah, so I went today and did my first payment for school. So I start, and it's going to be Monday through Friday, so that like in the future I can do my days of nursing. I probably do 2 to 3 days of nursing and then open my own business. That's the more natural side of things. So
Oh my
that's
gosh,
yeah, I'm
amazing.
really excited.
Congratulations. That's
Thank you.
huge. Oh, I think back to you talking about you living in an RV. I think it's such a special moment to go from feeling trapped in this physical house that you felt like you couldn't get out of to now you're you're mobile. You literally can go wherever you want. You feel like as a person, you mentally feel like you can go and do whatever you want. But then like the fact that your home is also that way. I feel like that says a lot. I don't know if that makes sense. It was like when you said it, I was like,
Yeah.
no, this says so much. Just this is really like it's exactly what you need right now.
Yeah. The other day, someone said to me at work, which was, I was surprised that she even would say this to me, but she said to me, she's like, "Are you ever embarrassed to tell people you're living in a camper?" And I was like, it kind of threw me off. I'm like, what? Like, I thought maybe I misheard her. She was like, "Are you ever embarrassed to tell people you live in a camper?" And I was like, no. And she's like, "Well, you don't like, but you're a nurse. Like, most people would think that you would have a house." She said, and I was just like, well, I'm not living in a camper because of money. Like, I'm living in a camper because of my goals. It has nothing to do with money. It only has to do with my goals and getting me to where I want to be. Like, and I feel like I said, like if it was warm enough, living in a box, as long as I was working towards everything that I want to be, is what makes me rich. Like, it has nothing to do with a mortgage. Like, it has to do with me trying to get to where I want to be and not planting roots if it's somewhere that's not going to serve me. So,
Mhm.
yeah. And I kind of, it just threw me off, but that it was nice because it made me think about it like, no, not at all. And it made me really appreciate what I do have here. So,
It even goes back to like you choosing to have such a positive mindset about everything. And like your living situation is nothing that like you should feel positive about this. Like it's a funny question. I'm like, when you said it, I was like, I don't understand this. But
yeah.
just the way that you were so surprised by it, like you are always looking at things like, why would I even bother to look at if there even is a negative to this? Why would I even spend my time thinking about that? Like you only and like this is not toxic positivity. Like you are obviously doing the healing and you're doing both sides of it. But I think the way that you just focus on the good and look what's been happening, the good has been getting better. Like it's it's really cool to see. We we talk and I know we talked about this beforehand, but we usually do our favorites, which I know you know. I think this has been about you. I think we should just have it be Liz's favorites. And even if you just want to have it be your mantra of the week or like your quote, if you have one, like that is your go to Liz quote, would be a perfect way to wrap up today.
But I was looking forward to hearing both of yours.
We can all do them if you want, but I just think for the sake of time and for the sake of
Okay.
like making this about you, we can save ours for next week. And then it's something for people to come back to.
Okay. So my quote. So the one I came with, even though this has been, I mean, I guess it kind of aligns with it, but even though we've been going along with what we've been talking about this whole time, I brought a different quote. Um, and it's from the original Cinderella story with Hilary Duff. "Never let the fear of striking out keep you from playing the game." And I've always loved that quote. I've always loved that movie, but it's just like bluntly what it says, but also to think about it as in terms of the universe. Like, you are attracting what you're ready for. And if these opportunities are arising, as long as it's, contributing to you building your dream life, like, don't be scared and make the jump.
Oh, it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. I
I love
love,
them.
yeah, that's amazing. Liz, thank you so much for coming on today, for opening up the way you did. Like, it truly, like, to have you as our first guest was a no-brainer, but then to have this be the first conversation that we're having with a guest is just even more special. It's just truly so inspiring. You are so inspiring. Like I said, like your strength, everything about you is such an inspiration. And I cannot wait to continue knowing about your journey through your TikTok and through everything else you choose to share and do with your life. It was just, this is only the beginning. And I'm so excited for everything else that's coming to you and all the goodness and everything that you deserve and continue to work for. This is just, thank you so much. Like, seriously, this has been amazing.
Thank you. I was so thankful to be here. When you guys reached out to me, when you girls reached out to me, I was like, I was through the moon. I was so excited. I was like, I would be honored to come on. Like when I'm listening to the podcast like by myself when I'm getting ready or in my drive, I'm like, I feel like I'm in there. I'm like in the conversation already. So I was like, to actually be able to be here and say the things that I like that I'm agreeing with or like to contribute to your conversation was so exciting for me.
It was amazing.
Yeah, thank you so much. And your story, I think, is going to resonate with the exact people who needed to hear it. And so thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing all the parts of you that make up that beautiful mosaic of Liz.
Take us out,
All right,
Susan.
guys. You know the drill. Please like, subscribe, leave a review wherever you are listening, and we will see you next week.